right, hello listeners. Kiki here with my host.
I'm Kat Umano.
And welcome to the SLC Sit Down, episode 2. Oh my gosh, you guys, we are finally getting this up and running right now. Just a little history of the SLC Sit Down. So this all started with Jay Whitaker, Salt Lake comedian, celebrity. He's fantastic. If you have never heard of him, shame on you. He started a project with the Black Panther movie, and we needed to discuss this. We needed to unpack it. This movie was huge for blurs everywhere. And so we got a big group of everyone together, activists, geeks, just professors, everyone, and it was amazing. And we did this podcast, and we thought it was so amazing that we just had to keep something like this going. And so therefore the SLC Sit Down was created. And so
thus we were born.
Yes, right? And so Kat and I will be your hosts for this. And so again, episode 2, I'm so excited right now. And we have a great show for you tonight. And we're going to introduce our panelist here.
Hello, I'm Paul White. I am a social psychologist professor at the University of Utah. Been here in Utah since 95, and I guess I consider myself the old man of the SL Sit Down.
Yeah, well, and exactly. Yeah, you were sitting on that discussion too, and it was fantastic, right?
But I believe the only doctor.
Yes, the only doctor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm Stephan Watson, a podcaster, amateur voice actor, and a few other things. But,
so not amateur. Stop lying.
Look, can I just please keep my head small at least for a little bit?
No, I won't let you.
There you go. But yeah, so I was also part of that group, and I kind of hold fast to the, I'm a little bit more mild-mannered, but, still have opinions over on the matter. So, yeah, just try to help out where I can.
Yeah, and are you guys so excited that we're finally, getting this up
and
going now?
Yes, because we did the Black Panther back in February when it first came out. I was just kind of behind the scenes, it was so cool to just witness as an outsider. But yeah, we've been trying to get this together since about February. There were about 15 of us involved.
Mm-hmm.
There were quite a few. There were about 12 of us just on the panel. So to try to get all of us together was a feat. So we decided to kind of scale it down a little bit and just do smaller rotating panels. So you'll still hear from everyone that you heard from on the SLC Wakanda episode, just in kind of rotating groups, which I think will be a cool dynamic. So
Right.
Yeah.
And let's do a little intro so people know who
hosts
me. Are.
Me. So my name's Kat Umano. I've been in Utah for about 2 years. I've kind of moved around a bit. I grew up in Boston, and I am a performer and dancer and dance teacher. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's about it.
And geek.
And
coming.
I'm like a baby geek, though.
But you're on the way.
I'm on the way. Yep, baby steps.
And I'm Kiki, cosplayer, gamer. I've been on panels for Comic-Con. I've been guest on some podcasts, Geek Show, Crack Brain with Stephan over there. I'm just your geeky BFF. So look me up, social media, Kiki Furia, that's Furia, on most social media platforms. So.
Not the dumb ones.
Not the dumb ones.
ones.
But I'm out there. Hit me up.
You mean the ones that survive longer in about 2-3 weeks?
Right. Right. They're implanted in our DNA. Awesome. Thanks again for our guests for coming. We're so excited. We got to do some quick shout outs to Tom.
Yes.
Over here.
Big shiny robot.
Yeah.
Huge thank you
Thank
for
you.
letting us use the space and the equipment.
Yes, he's awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Time to get our topic going here.
Yes. So we are going to be talking about interracial relationships. And the big thing to remember with interracial relationships is that it expands beyond black and white. It expands beyond heterosexual relationships, which I feel like is in the spotlight most of the time. And so I want to talk about all aspects of it. So where to begin? Actually, I believe everyone in this panel is in an interracial relationship, correct?
Indeed.
Indeed. In to some scale or another. All right. So, as far as we'll have some questions and we'll have just some talking points here. So, why do we think that even in 2018, interracial relationships are seen as both a positive thing and a negative thing? Why still are people having issues with this?
Please, somebody educate me.
Please, somebody have an answer.
Well, on the it's easy on the. I can think about the negative. I'm trying to think on the I think one of the I've wondered on the positive if it's not the trend. It's,
okay.
It's that kind of I'm being different.
I'm being progressive.
I'm being progressive. I'm not going along with the crowd by going out with somebody who's of a different grouping of mine. I wonder if that's part of the positive. I know growing up, I remember hearing those stories of people that was how they rebelled against your parents.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen, bringing in some geek, if you've ever seen the movie Soul Man, which is a good movie and a bad movie all in one, that's one of the characters who ends up dating the main character, and I'm blanking on their names, bad geek. But I remember that was part of it for her. It was a white woman who thought she was dating a black man, and it was when he gets exposed as a white man, then she sees this native indigenous man who's there, and she goes, kind of like, oh, hello, kind of thing. It's like, yeah. And I think there is some of that still happens.
Yeah, and I can kind of weigh in a little bit, not even just about like, the interracial marriage that I'm in right now, but when I was kind of dating in Japan, it was there were two relationships, and one of them was for the, oh my god, I'm dating a black guy. No, I want everyone to be able to see. So there definitely was that, and kind of playing into the, okay, well, let me play the part just so that way I can kind of live within the society, because that's something where, at least out over here in the US, we might see it as just the black and white font, and it is kind of still that same thing, but there are some definite struggles that we don't really think about culturally, that, when you do date in a completely different country, you run into that. But then, the other one was just sort of like, it was fun, it was nice, and that one had so many positives because it was more of a learning experience. It's still the younger generation where it was a little bit more accepted, so a lot of things, rather than kind of out and in your face trying to, we're trying to, prove a point. It was more or less just like, no, this is normal. We want to show how normal this is.
Right.
I felt very true. Like, and if I had to really think about like a negative and a positive, like negative right out the gate, I'll start with the negative. I think there are people that just still have this ideas of keeping things pure. And that's totally like, something that if you think that way, you have every right to think that way. But going on the positive side, if we were all the same, we'd be boring. I'm just gonna say. And so I think it's beautiful when I see interracial relationships, because that is two people who are literally going to be learning so much about each other and moving forward with that. And that's like my number one like positive for that. And me being mixed, like I grew up seeing my mom who's black and my dad is Portuguese, and so that's what that was. And so it was just already like, oh, that's cool, okay, hey, this guy's cute. Like, so that's kind of how it grew.
Right. At the end of the day, it should all come down to just attraction,
right?
And not, an attempt to be progressive, an attempt to, date that token, insert race here,
right,
person.
Right.
Now, what about I feel like there's this feeling that if you're dating someone of a different race, that automatically rules you out as being a racist. And that if, I'm dating a black guy, I can't, I'm not racist, I'm dating,
No.
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 And that kind of Stephan is dying.
I'm losing it over here. I'm sorry.
Right, and that, if you're dating someone of a different race, that automatically cancels you out as being a racist towards, any specific race,
and if
which
that's
is
your goal, you've got problems.
no, seriously. Yep.
Just saying.
because that goes back to what I was talking about with the, some people may use it as, and I like the word you use, the word token. It is that kind of thing of like, oh, see, I am doing this, and there's no way I can be against this group because I've dated a insert group here person, but that doesn't mean you're not prejudiced. That doesn't mean you can't have isist against that group. Because if anything, if you think about it, if you're picking that group specifically because they are that group, that's not, to me, that's not then, okay, you're not picking the person. You're picking the group.
Exactly.
Right. And I think
it's picking a suit almost.
Oh, yeah. And I think almost sometimes if you're dating someone of a specific race, that might almost give you the idea that you think you have more liberty than you do to say certain things and do certain things that you wouldn't otherwise if you weren't dating that person. Just be like, no, it's okay. I'm dating so-and-so person.
Right.
Well, it's like sometimes it it can even extend as far as other members of the family where, like in the marriage I'm in right now, there have been things that my wife said and that now she's a lot more educated about. So there's certain words that I'd be like, no, you really shouldn't use that word.
Right.
The amount of times I had to tell her, it's like, stop saying color. Trust me, you're going to get dealt with. I'm mild, but my family's not. But
Like, I'll tell you nicely, other people won't.
it was real. It was real.
Boy.
But going from her to her parents, and and then step parents, and that was something where. The amount of times where I've been introduced into local families, hey, this is my black son-in-law. And it's like, hi, you could, sure, you could have just said,
I have a name.
Yeah, it's like, you can call me the short one and I'm totally fine. I really could care less. But, there's been so many times where it's like, oh yeah, or the fact it's like, oh, well, let me go and tell you this joke really quick.
Oh.
Am I your, it's like, I'm your racist buffer, mainly because that I can't get super mad at you. I'll get irritated about quite a few things, but that's just one thing where it's like, this is not going to stop. So whatever, it feels like I'm just the one to kind of bounce that off of like, okay, I need to say this or else I'm going to explode.
Yeah, kind of the test subject to see like what I can and can't say.
Exactly. And going back on what Dr. Paul was saying too, makes me also think of a film, and it's an old film, you guys, but it's still great. Go see it, called Imitation of Life. Have you seen that one? It's really good. It's super old. About a woman, and she had a black like person in her house who cleaned whatever, and she had a daughter who was half white. And so her daughter, though, being raised and seeing the lifestyles of what the white family had and whatnot, she totally shunned her black side and would purposely go after white boys to almost shun her black side. But that didn't work out too well for her, too. And it was just this, like, really cool relationship between her and her mom, and then just her, like, figuring out herself and whatnot. Really, really good. But almost kind of like you were saying, though, like, to like put on a suit, you know what I mean? And like in that film, that was her trying to actually like almost run away from a part of herself that at that time, because it was like set back in, I don't know, 60s, 50s, I don't know, but like was that yeah, bad geek too. I'm a movie buff. I should know this. But yeah,
it's only
like,
episode 2, Kiki.
I know, right? But yeah, she was like putting on that suit, trying to like shun something to fit into somewhere else, and that's not advised. Like,
and I don't necessarily want to dive too much into this, especially if it's going to be handled later, but that is something where it still exists today, where I can identify with that, because where I grew up in Southern California, everyone always thinks, oh, Southern California, you were around tons of black people.
Right.
I was for a long time, and I'm still in a beach town, so it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. It's just I grew up with a lot of other cultures. Black just wasn't really with it. So it was something where growing up, I did have this sort of response, usually because the outside treatment that I also had to deal with as well. But I was always kind of running away from that. So, my preferences always did, skew like, oh, okay, well, Asian, Mexican, everything else. And then was like, oh, well, what about this black girl? I was like, well, I mean, and it wasn't until literally my mother quite literally smacked me upside the head and went, your thinking is wrong. You can have a preference, whatever you want, but you cannot go against this as well. Like, you cannot go like, no. You can just be like, oh, yeah. It's like you just have a preference. So yeah, that's something where it still exists today in the form of, others that feel like they're pushed out of, and it's not even just a black thing. It's like if you feel like you're pushed out of whatever racial group you're in, sometimes you can harbor that same sort of viewpoint.
Right. Very true.
Actually, going off of that, I'm kind of skipping around topics because why not? So again, going off of that, what do we think about your own identity in your own race being in an interracial relationship? I was doing my research before this and, reading some articles, about Black, white, Asian, everything in between relationships. And kind of, I think it was actually the Donald Glover article, someone saying that him dating a white woman doesn't define his blackness, and how him being with someone of another race doesn't affect his own identity as a black man. What do we think about that as far as your own identity being with someone of a different race?
I mean, for me, I'm still me. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to change. But I grew up in watching an interracial relationship and whatnot. And I mean, relationships in general are hard. I mean, taking it out, the whole fact that they were interracial, but like, it was just natural, it seemed like. So it's like, why wouldn't that, be the same for me, so to say, you know what I mean? So like, at the end of the day, I'm still me. And if anything, Kiki likes, I'm curious. Like, I'm always curious. I want to learn. And the best way to learn from people is to talk to them, to be with them, as intimate as you can with them, and open up and learn and ask questions with that person, and hopefully they're willing to answer you back. And in the relationship that I'm in now, we talk about a lot of issues and whatnot. He's Asian, or half anyway, and so if I have questions, I easily just be like, hey, what's that? What's this? Like, what does that mean? Like, and he's just like, yeah, this is what that is. And the same thing. And he's like, did you hear about that? Yes, I did. Black folks. But it's like, it's just a very open dialogue, which I like. And I think that part of being in a relationship, knowing who you are, hopefully the other person knows who you are as well. You know them, already causes for great positive dialogue.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of that, I think that's one of the I don't necessarily want to say easiest parts, but one of the kind of advantages when it comes with interracial dating is that there isn't this preconceived, at least with the ones that I've been in, there's never been this preconceived notion of, as far as, oh, well, I have to act like this. Right. I have to go and do this. I was still raised by two fantastically strong Black individuals that instilled a lot of what we would consider Black culture, values within me. But at the same time, they allowed me to go and think for myself. So thus, when getting into relationships, not having to think about, oh, well, what did the culture think about this? And just sort of like, no, this is how I would like to go and move forward and whatnot. These are my goals. These are my aspirations. And these are my ambitions. It made it so much easier because I didn't have something to live up to, or I didn't have to identify with, oh, okay, well, I need to act a certain way, or I need to be presented in a certain way within the, the society bounds and whatnot. So
that's, well, I was thinking, because one of the things that's interesting with that is I wonder about at times people who are in mixed ethnic group relationships, if at times they may feel that they have to almost overcompensate. So if you're Black with someone who's non-Black, do you have to kind of try to show your blackness even more at times?
And I
Yeah.
can attest to that a little bit because I feel like sometimes I did feel like that when I was in a relationship with someone who wasn't black. Like it was kind of strange, and I like would try to self-reflect and think about like, why am I doing that? You know,
Because I had a colleague at the U for a number of years who was in a different department who was married to a white woman. He's African American, and he, in giving talks in his research, dealt a lot with black identity, prejudice, and stereotyping. And it was intriguing to see him in the first couple of years I knew him. When we would be on panels and different talks, he would start off saying, I am married to a white person. Okay, now let's get into this issue. And I kept going, why are you doing that? And then I realized, because if he was talking about the issue first and then brought that up, or someone knew that, they would say, oh, well, but how can you talk so proudly about black identity and black pride, and here you are married to a non-black person? It's like, but that shouldn't matter. It's like, it's almost like that shouldn't matter, but it still does.
right?
In people's mind. Just what was the quick attack on Donald Glover? There are some things you can attack him for,
Right.
but that was one of the quick ones that people brought up. It's like, well, he's with a white woman, and so he can't speak to the black experience.
Right, and I believe that this came out right after he released This Is America video, which he got crazy praise for, which is a brilliant video. I remember we talked about this in the group chat. Fantastic video. I watched it multiple times.
Same.
So many layers to it. We'll probably be doing a breakdown of that as well on a future episode.
Please do it for me.
We'll only do it for Tom, not for any other reason.
I taught a dance to that song. I didn't even care who had an issue with it. I was like, let me explain some things.
Right, but there was this, I remember that all these articles came out very soon after the video got released, and there was this, almost this shock, like, well, you're supposed to be the our king of woke. How could you, but you're with a white woman? It's like, that shouldn't matter. That doesn't matter. It doesn't take away from, the amazing piece of art that he put out there and everything that he's done. That doesn't take away anything from that. It's just.
And I hate that idea of, oh, you're selling out, basically. You know what I mean? Like, I went to bed black. I'm gonna wake up black. So, like, that's ridiculous. Now, like Dr. Paul was saying, there were a lot of interesting things though about what he was saying and in those articles, and things that I found, and I was just like, let's talk about this. Where he was saying that basically black women didn't date him because he was a geek, which I found to be so interesting. And I was like, excuse you? Wait a minute. First of all, did you date every black girl out there? You're talking to one right here. And, I think that was just more of the girls you were pursuing weren't into that.
Right. And that's.
But you can't just shove that on.
But even that, I wonder how he defines geek.
Right. That too.
Because I love sports, and I say, as people who are sports fans, that's a geek. You are, I mean, you in just about anything can be geek. Now, if they weren't into sci-fi or comic books,
right.
then they're just not into sci-fi and comic books. That doesn't mean it's like to say, well, there's this whole group, so black women aren't into that. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Right.
If you're into it, why wouldn't you think black women would also be into it, or Asian women, or Hispanic women, or any group you want to mention?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and all of that is is exceedingly valid, especially when I also want to know what. How many people he actually tried finding that were interested in those things, where it's like, where, if you get to know me, I love anime and Japanese culture, something ridiculous. All right. It's but it's something where I hold that very near and dear to my heart. My wife has absolutely no interest in anime. She has no interest in, like, she would love to go to Japan, but she's like, great, can we bring every American food with us? Because I don't need to test foods and whatnot. But yet and I also want to go and point this out. We've been married for 8 years. This has never been an issue for us,
Right.
So it's something where it's not like because you identify as a geek or or anything like that it's like, oh, okay, well, my preferences need to also fall in line with who I identify myself as well. It's like, no, you can go and have your preferences and then kind of go like, well, maybe they don't share this, but cool. It's not like, oh, okay, well, she needs to love anime, she needs to love the Avengers, and she needs to be black. It's like, no.
No, yeah, exactly.
It's like, love what you're gonna love.
Yeah, I still remember in grad school, I dated a I shouldn't say this, but actually, well, no.
Too late. Say
yeah, I know. I was first year graduate student going, first and second year graduate student. She was a senior undergrad, but I didn't have any of her classes or anything like that. But I remember part of why we connected was she was wearing a shirt, and I went, Punisher. And we're talking early 90s. And she was like, you're the first person who hasn't said, why do you have a skull? Or are you a pirate? Or are you part of a motorcycle gang? I was like, no, it's the Punisher. And we clicked on that.
Yay.
And it was that kind of, so it was, you can click on geek stuff, but there's other people like, yeah, my wife cannot, she goes to gymnastics. She likes gymnastics. But I love football, and she thinks probably football is from Satan. I took her to a U game once, and she's like,
that long.
She's like, yeah, it was. Yeah, at least I got to sit and look at the mountains. That was for 3 hours. I was like, okay, So I still remember my mom years ago with this one person I dated in grad school for a while. I remember coming home one time and saying, oh, she and I are so much alike. And Mom, in her great wisdom, all she did was she handed me a little quote book that it said, if you and your partner are exactly the same, one of you is not needed. And it's like, like you were saying earlier, it's like you can learn from, and that's part of it. It's not about, I think if you want to limit yourself and say, I must date someone of this ethnicity or of this group, then okay, that's your choice, that's your preference, that's your limitation.
Right.
But that shouldn't be forced upon other people, I don't think.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of, if we're gonna keep going talking about like geek dating, is that, if they're not into something, like, that's okay. You can slowly introduce it to them. If it's still not their cup of tea, that's okay. Because obviously what should be driving the relationship is love, right? But I do think it's so fun because I've dated, like, guys, I'm a huge movie buff. I love movies. And, like, so if my boyfriends at the time were just like, I've never seen this movie. What? Okay, hold on. Mom, he's never seen this movie. What? And then, like, we are like,
you get to, like,
Homework.
discover things together.
Right. And then I'm just like, you gotta see this. It's so great. Like, and whatnot. And some of them were totally digging it. Some of them were like, no. And, like, because that's a huge, deep-rooted passion for me, and my family is huge on movies and whatnot, and we talk in movie quotes and things like that, I don't know if we should be together. But that's just something, like, preference for me. So, like, it's just, you'll look for things that you guys can identify on and things that you're not going to, but if they can still, like, roll with the punches, you know what I mean? Like you're saying, I think there's something to be said for that too.
Right. If you're too similar and you have all the same interests, things are going to get boring very quickly. Fast. And like I said before, it's exciting to be able to discover different things and different interests with each other, even if you're not into that interest, whether it's sports, geek stuff, whatever. Right. Like I mentioned before, I'm more of a baby geek. I always loved Wonder Woman, always. But
Amazons.
Yes. So only recently, when I started dating my boyfriend, who is a very big geek, I was getting introduced to comic books and, having to catch up on Marvel and just getting, educated on geek stuff. And I genuinely enjoy it. I'm probably not quite as hardcore as he is, but it was just something cool that he could watch me discover. We'd go to the comic book store and I'd find some comic and he's like, I knew you'd find that. And, I'd be on the couch. I just recently discovered Lockjaw, which is a comic about a bulldog, which, like, not his thing, but I was like, I blew through all 3 issues that one night, and it was just cool to share that, even if it's
And like you saw his passion for it, so
Yeah.
that made you kind of open up, you know what I mean? Which is beautiful.
Yeah, and even if I wasn't into it, I would still, respect it and, partake as I wished and, as much as I wanted to. But, and same thing with me. I have interests that I'm sure he could not give two shits about. Hey, we're going to swear on this podcast. By the way, and that's fine. We don't need to go to, I'm like, if anything, I love my boyfriend, but I don't want to do everything with him.
Right.
I would go nuts. And I think most people, as much as in love, that was in English, as in love as they are, don't want to do every single thing with their partner.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something where I've been trying to actively push that, very strongly inside my marriage, which is, I've told my wife many times that I fell in love with who you are and who I know you. It's like who I know you can be, and not like, oh, I'm gonna manipulate you into being what I want you to be. Yeah, it's like it was never that. It's like, no, I would see this very timid, shell, and then all of a sudden she would get fiery and she'd get passionate about something. I'm like, I fell in love with that, and that's who I love, and as as we've continued our marriage and whatnot, there have been times where she'll be like, oh, okay, well, does it feel like we've lost anything? And I'm like, all I want you to do is I want you to be who you want to be, because that's who I love. All right, I didn't marry you because, oh, well, she looks great in a bikini.
Right.
That was an added bonus.
Ding, ding, ding.
Right. But it's the fact that I can sit there and be like, this is someone that I can grow with, someone that calls me on my BS all the time. And that's one of the chief things that I married her with, is like, no, I can be very much a jackass. And I don't accept advice from a lot of people. I accept it from you. And this is why I need you. It's like, this is why I need to be with you, because it's like, you call me on what I like, what I actually need out of this relationship. I need someone to keep me in check. And that's something where I literally have her do for me. It's like, I need you. If I start going, too far on the side, treat me like a pinball, knock me over to the side, because that's what I need out of this relationship. Right. And for her, she's like, I just need someone stable. I'm like, I can do that.
And whether she be black, white, green, purple, like, she happens to be a white woman, and she does that for you, hands down. Like, that's everything you're talking about is the real things that come with the relationship, not what color she is.
Right. Or the fact that she still has never seen one episode of Dragon Ball Z. I've tried.
Shame.
I've tried.
Shame. Keep trying. Tell her I said keep. No. No. At least Cowboy Bebop. At least. See a space cowboy? No? Okay.
All right, so we touched a little bit, actually quite a bit, on geek dating. We have a few more topics if we're going back to interracial dating.
Oh, this is a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Dealing with parents.
Woo!
In interracial dating. That's usually, when I've been reading these articles, that's usually where the catch is. It's like, hey, everyone was cool, but when I introduced them to my parents,
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, that's usually where it goes south. So
true story.
Oh boy.
Dated an Armenian guy in junior college. Great guy. We hit it off. Really cool. Met his parents. Thought I totally had it in with his parents. We had dinner. They left. We talked. Great time. 2 weeks went by and he started getting real distant. And I was just like, what's going on? And then finally he had to just break it out. And he's like, yeah, my parents said I can't date you. You're black and not Armenian, and I need to be dating an Armenian. And I was like, first thing, literally, it popped in my head, where's your balls? Like, you can't tell your parents that this is, you care, like, you want to be with me, like, and if you're gonna falter like that, then, I don't really need to be with you anyway, I guess. Like, but I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, and that was years ago, but, like, it's not like it was way back when, when that really would be, like, something you'd hear about probably more often, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm just like, what? It still puts a burr up my ass.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially, nowadays, where when kind of going on both sides of my relationship. I was here in Utah, when I met my wife, crashed her high school graduation party.
Nice.
Like you do.
Yeah. But when we finally decided to go and date, the look on her father's face was like, excuse me? You're going to date my daughter. And, a little bit of, additional background on me is I happen to be a Jehovah's Witness. So when looking into the Jehovah's Witness religion, you date to get married. So it's not something where it's like, oh, okay, we're just going to go and kind of have fun and da-da-da. No, so I literally had to break a secondary wall where it's like, look, I'm going to date your daughter. You know that I kind of have the intention of marrying her. At the end of this, I'm not just having fun. And yet still had to go through the, I don't want you to like think that this is fun. You can sleep around. And like, he did everything other than saying like, I know how you people are.
Right. You already have the stereotype.
Exactly. And it took like 3 months to go and break that down, and that was just my father-in-law, mother-in-law. we'll put that for another day. But
episode 3.
Oh god. Yeah. But like, that was so difficult. Whereas my wife, she was so afraid to go and meet my parents. She's like, oh my god, what are they gonna think of me? I'm like, trust me, you're dealing with me. When I told my parents that I'm dating, they went, no, really? You're dating someone. Okay. That's great. Okay. And then they, met my wife, absolutely loved her and whatnot, even to the point where at our wedding, they were willing to keep my wife and go like, look, you can push him over to the side. All right. We love you.
We'll keep her.
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of this weird little thing where, sometimes it's not both sides. It's one or the other,
That's true.
And it can be frustrating, but as long as you're willing to put the relationship first,
Right.
you can get past it,
Right.
Well, for my white she devil and I, we'll just skip. I'll talk about some past relationships.
Okay.
I still remember in high school. This was we're talking southeastern Kentucky. Very few blacks where I lived. I was considered one of the top. I was playing basketball, was very popular in sports and in academia. Started dating a person who was white, and come to find out, it was hilarious that her father was a huge fan of our basketball team. Knew my nickname, knew all this, did not realize the person he was seeing on the court was also the person who was dating his daughter.
Oh.
And when that got pieced together, it was hilarious to me in some ways, because he basically told her, nope, break it off. There's no way, and all, before everything was fine, everything was cool, because he didn't know who I was, and he's seen these two different roles. In college, still remember again dating a white person. See, that's my problem. Maybe I should have stopped then. No. Because I knew my wife in college. But in college, had a long-term girlfriend for a couple of years. She came home with me, and this is actually kind of funny. She came home after we had split up, but she was still friends with my family. And we were going home. We were coming home right before I was graduating for a friend of mine's wedding, and my uncle, I should say my siblings are much older than me. I have my oldest brother 16 years older, my another brother's 15 years older, a sister's 13 years older, and a sister who's 6 years older. And so they grew up, to give a sense, they grew up when there was my three oldest siblings when there was still school segregation legal. So that gives you a sense of how old I may be too.
Stop.
Well, I always say, hey, Loving versus Virginia I'm just about as old as that is, So I remember when my ex girlfriend, still friend, still dating, kind of. We walk up on the porch. My uncle kind of looked at my oldest brother and went, kind of gave the look and the huh. Now, my uncle, his first wife was white. His kid, he has two daughters, or he had, when he was had two daughters. He's got, my cousins, black and white. And there he is giving this look. And I'm just like, and I remember the woman at the top, she was kind of like, oh, do they not like me? It's like, I don't care. It's like, it's like my mom likes you. One of my sisters I'm close to, my sisters were like, it's like, no, it's like, that doesn't, it's like, if they want to play that game, it's like, because then when I said to her, it's like, he was married to a white woman first. And she's like, so why doesn't he like me? It's like, I could tell you all kinds of stories about my uncle. I was like, I was like, it's an
keyword
easy,
was.
yeah, exactly. Right. It's an easy excuse, and there's times I've wondered that with families, it becomes an easy excuse,
right?
To like, oh, I want to kind of push this person away or control this person in a way, and this is a way to do it. If they're dating outside of the ethnicity, I'm going to, or even outside of the culture, outside of the family, those kind of things.
Which, again, that double standard, because that's basically what that is. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and I've seen that time and time again where I'm walking with a white guy or a Mexican guy, or Asian guy, or whatever, and I see this other black guy who has a white woman on his arm or whatever, and he just looks at me like, same thing, that look, hold the hell on. Like, first of all, look who's on your arm, and I didn't say anything to you about it. You know what I mean? Like, where I'm sure other people would, but I wouldn't, so why would you give me that hatred? You know what I mean? So I was just like, whatever, dude. Like, it's so ridiculous to me.
Right. And kind of going way back, when we were talking about, as far as if, it comes down to attraction, a choice,
right.
Having that token person when we're dating, and if past experiences can influence that, kind of going off of what Dr. White said, if, people say, oh, well, I don't date black girls because, I had this bad experience. And it's like, okay, well, that may be true, but that doesn't mean that every single black girl that you try to date is going to be that way. It doesn't mean that, whoever you dated represents that entire population and you should rule all of that out.
Right. Right. You just had one bad relationship, bro. It just didn't work out with you and that one person. So, and also throwing out, like, I think we need to stop shaming, like, because there's been times where I've sat with other black females, for example, and we're all talking about what guys we think are cute or whatever, and I happen to say someone who's not black, and I get the immediate, like, stare down, and it's just like, immediately, like we were saying earlier, like the black card all of a sudden got stripped. That's not cool. No, I'm still black. I just find this attractive, and you can't shame me for that. But I think sometimes in the culture and then in that community, we still do that for not just even on dating, but on a lot of other things. You guys, we are causing Thor to have some problems right now.
Bring it.
Thor wants something on this conversation, I think. But yeah, I don't think that's cool. So I would say, like, try checking yourself sometimes if you're ever in a situation like that. Like, don't be so quick to shame someone because they said that someone outside of your culture or your ethnicity was cute. Like, because it can make people second guess, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh shoot, I'm not a part of this. Like Stephan was saying, like, I'm not a part of this anymore because I opened my mouth or whatever. Like, I don't think that's cool, but we know what happens.
Let people love, man. Man.
Awesome. I think we had like a lot of great dialogue, you guys. This was amazing, and I think we should go ahead and close out. So before we do a final closeout, what would be the closeout advice for our listeners? Something that we can have them take home.
I'd say, anything that I'd be able to go and say is, not only just the love whoever you want to love, but don't let what other people are going to either put pressure on you or, think of a relationship is between two people. It's not between you and the world.
Right.
And that's something where you might have to fight the world, but that doesn't mean that they get to weigh in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to let them weigh in, you're putting your entire relationship at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you do say, you know what, let's go and give this a shot, it's just you guys. You might have one or two people that can go and offer advice, but they don't get to set the terms. And there have been so many times where I just want to tell people, don't let anyone else, friends and family included, don't let them set the terms for your relationship.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of going off that, I was just going to say that especially with friends, family, we were talking about parents, that is usually the deal breaker for people, is their parents saying, nope. And I feel like a lot of times it's not even for a good reason. It's just because I said so and because it's just the way it is, which is not a valid argument. And so even though it's can be difficult, luckily I haven't had this experience, but even if, if you truly love that person, if if someone that you care about as much as your parents, your best friends, your family, weigh in on that, still take a step back. I feel like it's very easy when, your mom gives you her opinion on something to just automatically go, oh shit, maybe I should, maybe that wasn't a good idea, but still take that step back, and just kind of evaluate for yourself.
Right. I would say I have two pieces of advice for you. If you're looking for geek-specific dating, do your homework. Look in your community. Go to your comic book shops. Go to cons. Do some research of what's out in the community. If you're looking for someone to be into the same things as you, again, doesn't have to be whoever you're interested in. You can always introduce them to the stuff that you're into, but that would be a great place to start. Second, I would say it's okay to be ignorant. It's okay. Ask the questions that you want to ask. Don't be asses about it though. But if you are really curious about something and you're really pushing yourself out there because you don't want to offend, but you want to know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, please, it's okay to ask. It's okay to be ignorant, and just start with self-reflecting and educating yourself with your partner. Start there, and then you can start going off from there.
I think what all three of you said is great. The only
come on, doctor, you gotta educate us here.
Well, I was gonna I'll borrow from a person who used to be on Radio from Hell, Margaret Ruth, who would talk about giving love advice and relationship advice. And one of the things she said I thought was it's perfect. And we kind of touched on it a little earlier too. And it gets into the whole idea of not letting just, it should be you and your partner, not you and the partner, your family, their family, the world, everything. She always talked about in a relationship, it's all you can do is your 50%. It's like, you can't change the person. You can't, it's like you can want to, it's like, here, read Thor. Here, come to football games with me. Here, you I know it's like, but Star Wars is just as good as Star Trek, kind of thing. Those kind of things.
No, it's not.
It's like, you should be looking at Babylon 5. Those kind of
Whoa!
Those you should know when the first interracial kiss happened on television, and it's not what people think. That's let me give the answer to that one. But it's it's like all these things. It's like all you can do is your half, which is part of know who you are, learn who you are, grow in your identity, and reach out to the other person. And if you're happy with yourself, and you realize your half is what you can control, not the other half, not the world. Then the two of you can persevere and go through different obstacles and hardships, like having to watch Star Trek 5, those kind of things. See the faces. Row your boat. Oh my
God. Preach. Advice for you guys. Please take and prosper and move forward with this amazing advice from our amazing panelists. Thank you again, Dr. Paul and Stephan. You guys were fantastic. Events, things that are happening.
Stuff. You can go first.
Oh, okay. So I work for a nonprofit. It's an after-school nonprofit, and July 11th from 1 to 4, we are holding a STEMCon. STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, if you didn't know what that was. And this is put on through the Salt Lake After School Regional Network in partnership with the Utah After School Network. And it's going to be a great event, you guys. We're basically advocating for Summer Learning Day, which is a huge event to just celebrate summer learning and to keep kids learning in after school. So when they go back in the school year, they haven't forgot a bunch of stuff, basically. But also advocating for after school programs, because this is a great service and people working in these programs are doing amazing things, you guys. And if you don't know if there's an after school program or a summer program in your community, please hit up the Utah After School Network and we can let you know what's there, and go check it out because there are amazing things happening and these kids are doing great things. And so STEMCon is like a big celebration of that. The theme is superheroes, so please come in cosplay. I will be in cosplay, superhero themed, and it's at the Sorensen Unity Center. That's 1383 South 900 West, Salt Lake City. So hope to see you guys there. It's going to be a great event, July 11th.
Nice. Also, coming up very soon on May 31st, that is a Thursday, we are having an event, there's going to be a comedy show, Laughs Matter, with our own Jay Whitaker from the first SLC Wakanda podcast. Great comedian, very well known and loved here in Salt Lake City, along with Natasha Maurer and Tanner Nicholson. That's going to be at the Wise Guys downtown location. It's 194 South, 400 West. Like I said, May 31st at 7 p.m. Tickets are only $10.
I already got mine.
So did I. So $10. You can buy it online. And all proceeds will go to a summer camp funded by Black Lives Matter, the Utah chapter, to just help some kids go to summer camp, have a good summer. It'll help pay for supplies, food, a little bit of swag. So come on out, have a great night, hear some great comedy. It'll be fun. Like I said, only $10. Help the kids.
The things we do for these damn kids.
All damn day with these damn
These
kids.
Baby's kids.
We don't die, we multiply.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
And then also one thing we are toying with on this podcast is giving recommendations, whether it's books, movies, media, things online, articles, and things like that. So a great book that I read, it was a couple months ago, so I'm still a little rusty on it. It's called Blind Spot, by, Mazarin Banaji and Anthony Greenwall. It's just called Blind Spot. It's just about biases that we all experience over every single race that we just kind of have ingrained in us, and also different biases that we have depending on, our race and the way that we grew up and where we grew up. And it's just a really cool book that really makes you self-reflect. So if you're looking to do a little bit of educating and getting a little woke, I definitely recommend that book.
And I would say with that, because it's Maju Banaje and Tony Greenwald, I know both of them. They're the Ohio State University connections, social psychologists. If you've ever heard of the implicit associations test or the IAT,
yes, they talk about that.
They're the ones who created the IAT.
It's fascinating. It's terrifying, but fascinating. So definitely recommend that. We're probably going to be doing some recommendations because some people, they want to get woke, but they don't know where to start. And it's just as simple as even just reading a book. Yeah. Which, speaking of, I believe we're going to be releasing these podcasts on Wednesday, which has now become Woke Wednesday.
#Woke Wednesday.
I love it.
#Woke Wednesday.
And I have to say, I laughed thinking about the SLC sit down. I realized there's three phrases that can be trigger warnings for me. One is when you hear your full name, especially from an adult or an authority figure. Yeah. The other one is can we talk? Or we need to talk. And the other one I hadn't thought about it. It's like can you have a seat? We need to have a sit down right now. It's like,
this is the good kind of sit down. This is the friendly sit down. The friendly sit down. Let's just have a chat.
Yeah, which is sometimes all it takes. Which
Nobody's
is funny.
in trouble.
Yeah, which is funny because I understand where that's coming from too. But I like that, and I talk about this whenever we're talking about anything POC related and the issues and whatnot, is that usually when we're talking about these topics, there is so much aggression that comes with it, which is automatically going to turn people away. So I think to sit down, let me get you some tea.
Exactly.
We're gonna have a little chat.
We're gonna have a chat.
And it's more to be fun, but again, like you have to learn to open up, and I think that's where change will happen, is that you're opening up and you're actually self-reflecting. And again, I think this book is fantastic around that, because let's be honest, we all got them. We all got biases. Don't even
I don't
try
care
to play
who
that.
you are.
Yeah, don't play that. You're just lying to yourself. But we all got them. So sit down with us, Woke Wednesdays, and we'll have some chats, and we'll make you laugh, and you'll just be like, my day's complete.
Yeah, right in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna need this.
No more hump day. It's Woke Wednesday.
I love it. Again, thank you guys so much. Applause all around. Thank you. Thank you to Tom, Big Shiny Robot. You guys are fantastic. And thanks to
board.
That's what it's meant to be, man. I just want to push my keyboard.
Right. And thank you again to Geek Show and Vocal Minority for shout outs and whatnot, and Crack Brain as well. Like, you guys are all awesome. And we will see you next Woke Wednesdays.
Bye.
Peace out.